I'm Rachel Edidin.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we are the hosts of Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast all about the ins, the outs, and the retcons of our favorite superhero soap opera.
We're also the hosts of Rachel and Miles Review the X-Men,
which you're watching right now,
where we talk about the X books that come out each week.
Now this week we're looking at the books from October 14th, 2015. There is only one X book this week.
Indeed, but if you're interested in X characters, we also have Uncanny Avengers #1 with Rogue, New Avengers #1 with Sunspot, and Guardians of the Galaxy #1 with Kitty Pryde.
None of which we will be reviewing because they are still not technically X books, and you gotta draw the line somewhere.
Indeed, so let's dive into our single book. Okay, our X book this week is What If Infinity X-Men #1, written by Joshua Williamson with art by Mike Norton and colors by Rochelle Rosenberg. And interestingly enough, this was originally What If Infinity Avengers #1, but was resolicited with the X-Men name.
Which actually kind of makes sense to me in retrospect, because one of my first thoughts on reading it is, wow, this really feels like the maybe more interesting half of the story is missing.
Yeah, so this is a What If follow-up, an alternate future follow-up to the Avengers-centric Infinity event from a little while back. There are a few other What If Infinity books that are also coming out around the same time, but this is the one that's a little more X-Men-y, or Avengers World-y, which is where Sunspot and Cannonball were recently.
I feel like the stuff you really need to know going into this, if you're not familiar with that event, is that there are these big cosmic entities called the Builders. There was a massive war with them, with huge casualties. Earth won.
Yes, and in this case, the Avengers lost. There are very few heroes left.
That is the what if that is being postulated.
Exactly. And so, we basically see Cannonball leading a ragtag group of mutants and meeting up with Sunspot, who's leading a ragtag group of Avengers, and some stuff happens, hijinks ensue, and, I kind of like it. As much as I've missed Sunspot and Cannonball since they left the X-Line a little while ago to be Avengers, I gotta admit, they really, really fit with that team. I feel totally okay about that. So, if you enjoy Sunspot and Cannonball, whether it's through Avengers World or whether it's through Old New Mutant stuff like it is for us, you could do a lot worse than this book. I mean, that said, it is a very small one-shot that does depend extremely heavily on an event you may or may not have been familiar with.
My complaint with regards to this book is very similar to my complaint with regards to a whole lot of Coen Brothers movies, which is that I think that there are scenes that are significantly better than the book.
That may be true. It does feel a little clunky, but it also has heart. And for me, I'll give a book a lot if it's got heart. And if you're writing a book about Sam Guthrie, your book had better damn well have heart. So there's
fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, the art is nice. Norton is not as good on this as we've seen him on other X titles, but he's solid enough. The story is... Honestly, the story feels really unfinished. The story feels like we're getting kind of an afterthought part of a bigger story. And I know that's kind of the point of What If, that it's taking big events and tangenting off of them. But I think there's a way to do that and still feel like you've got a very structurally complete story, and not like the most interesting parts are kind of... Not only, there are ways to hint at interesting parts, outside of the story, but here it just kind of, they feel left on the cutting room floor and it feels incomplete.
So if you liked Infinity, go for it. If you like Cannonball and Sunspot, go for it. Otherwise, probably one you could miss, but could definitely go either way on this one.
Okay, obviously we've only got one X book, so pick of the week is kind of a foregone conclusion. What's our panel of the week?
Our panel of the week is this one right here of Sunspot. Now, I've always been a big fan of the way Sunspot's powers look. They're just really cool, the whole silhouette with eyes and the bubbly black whatever it is. But one of the things I like about it is that when an artist does it right, and you just see these little features, like in this case, eyes and a mouth in the midst of the solid black, you can get a really expressive character. You can get sort of that cartoony exaggeration with still having a realistic art style, and that's what happens here with Sunspot.
It's the Bruce Timm's Batman principle. You can do more with a pair of whited out domino mask eyes on their own than you often can with an entire face.
Yes, although Sunspot doesn't nearly have Batman's gigantic square chin from that series, but we all have our flaws. So that's it for this week. Thanks for watching.
If you like what you've seen here, please check out our podcast, Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up every Sunday at rachelandmiles.com, also on iTunes and Stitcher. What have we got for them this week, Miles?
So this week, we're going to be looking at the 1987 miniseries X-Men vs. Avengers, not to be confused with the much more recent Avengers vs. X-Men.
Thank God.
This is the one with a lot of Magneto and a complete creative team switch 3/4 of the way through. It's very strange. This will be an interesting episode.
That podcast, these video reviews, and everything at rachelandmiles.com come to you courtesy of our rad Patreon subscribers. We are an entirely listener-supported and ad-free project. Those are the folks who make it happen, and if you would like to join their ranks, you can do that at the link either above or below this video, depending on where you're watching it.
In the meantime, we will see you next week as we dive, once again, back into Secret Wars.